Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. So as of my Tony Hawk's Underground 2 review, I have reviewed 100 individual original Xbox games on the channel. This is a huge milestone for the channel as I go through the entire Xbox catalog. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that at the end of my reviews, I rank up all of my videos on backlog.com. I do this instead of giving ratings. I think the ranking explains itself, especially with the more games that we add to the ranking. But I've never taken the time to fully break it down. It's usually just at the end of my videos. So today, why don't we break it down? 100 is a great milestone to do that. Of course, there are so many games I haven't covered yet, so a lot of your favorites are not going to be on this list. But let's go over everything that I've covered. Today, it's a little more off the cuff. Never really done a video like this, but hopefully you all enjoy it. Of course, I want to thank my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel. And I want to give a shout out to everybody who watches the channel. Without your support, we would have never hit 100 reviews on the channel. And I'm really happy to share my love for Xbox with a bunch of you guys, whether you grew up with Xbox or you didn't grow up with it at all. I do really appreciate all of you. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we are at number 1, but I thought let's start from the bottom up. And I've decided that if I talk myself into liking a game more or moving it up, that I'll do it here. So think of this as a re-ranking at times. And who knows, I'm so early in this video, I could not move anything. I could be 100% concrete. And also, I don't know how long this video is going to be. So let's see how this goes. I could be here for hours or as quickly as possible. I guess I'll know when this gets uploaded. But let's go ahead and start here at the bottom. So I normally don't do ratings on the channel, but on Backlogged, I do rate my games. So we can actually split these up into different categories of star ratings. So here at the bottom, right here with Cabela's Dangerous Hunts, that is the worst game I reviewed on the channel. I gave that one a 1.5. This one I reviewed a while ago, and I still contest that it's the worst that I've played, even though I know there's worse out there. From what I remember, the graphics are just bland, very boring, slow game. It has that hunting game mechanic of having stamina. So you run a little bit and then you slow down, and it's just a lot of that over and over. It's just not really a fun game. Bland environments, just weak, nothing I ever want to return to. Next at 99 is Driver 3 or Drive 3 or whatever the hell you want to call it. This one's just kind of a rough game, really glitchy. This one is a bit more controversial. I think overall people don't like it, but it definitely has its supporters, especially with its free play mode, which I do agree that does help it a little bit. But overall, the structure of the game is just kind of weak. And I remember playing it and just having zero fun with it, which of course, if you're not having fun with a game, what's the point? And then New Legends at 98. New Legends is the last 1.5, I would say, on this list. Just the idea is there for New Legends. And this is an Xbox exclusive, and I hate trashing one so hard, but when it's that bad, it needs to be said. It's there. The idea is there. It's silkpunk, so it mixes Asian mythology with steampunk ideas, which is neat. You don't see that so much. I think some of the environments are cool, but the gameplay is just bad. Like, it's just weak. Like, there's, once again, an idea there with the dual-wielding weapons. That's cool, but it's just bland, boring. I remember the characters following you and having really awful AI that kind of made some missions miserable because they needed to catch up. Just once again, it's not a fun game. It's a game with a lot of ideas, and I wish it had more time to be developed on because it's really cool, but when the gameplay is just so broken, it's just not that fun. So I consider these bottom 3 just games that I almost got no fun out of. Games that I don't wish to revisit because it's just not that interesting. And then moving into Dangerous Hunts 2, this is the first one of the bunch that I would give 2 stars. So my idea with 2 stars is it's bad, but it had some type of fun to give me. Something interesting was here. And Dangerous Hunts 2, once again, just kind of bad and weak gameplay, but at least it gets a little weirder. Dangerous Hunts 2 has mythological creatures, or maybe you're like hunting weird creatures. I know at the end of the game you hunt a Yeti, which is really odd for a Cabela's game, but I kind of like that. It makes it a little different. But once again, the gameplay just is kind of weak. Next at 96 is Hummer Badlands. Hummer Badlands is just kind of a bad racing game. If I remember right, braking was pretty bad in this game, and it made you hit turns really hard. And it overall was just kind of a bland, cheap racer. It was a budget title, so and you'll see that, I'll say that a few more times, there's a few budget titles that get weaker ratings, but there just really wasn't enough with this racer to keep it interesting the whole time, especially when it's just Hummers. It's actually hard to recall my memories on this one, so I would say this is very forgettable. Next at 95 is Shark Tale, which is a licensed game. I actually like this one more than I expected, still gave it 2 stars though, because there is a lot of issues with this one, especially with like the rhythm games, which end up being extremely hard for a children's game. I would say the fun that I took out of this was some of the originality, like the Punch-Out style boss fights, which I wasn't expecting to see, but it does repeat itself quite a bit. I would say it's more mediocre than anything, but nothing really stands out to me. And that could go for 94 Aragon as well. Once again, I like this one more than I expected. Both Shark Tale and Aragon get trashed really hard, and I'm saying this for a 2-star rating game, but Aragon, graphics are good. It's a very good looking game coming in at the end of the original Xbox's lifespan, but the gameplay was just kind of bland. You know, you just run around, attack things, and move on. A lot of licensed games have this style of gameplay, and there's some really cool sections where you ride on dragons, and it barely happens in the game. I wanted more of that, and it just felt like it gave you something interesting and then just took it away from you for more fighting gameplay that just isn't that amazing. And then the last 2-star here is, I'm honestly in between if it's a 2.5 or a 2. 2 seems pretty harsh for an Evil Dead game. It's Evil Dead: A Fistful of Boomstick. I liked less than what most people expected, it seemed like. A lot of people in the comments disagree. There's a lot of people who love this game. I don't love it. This is one I actually played when I was younger, and I remember not loving it. And I still have some issues with it. I love Evil Dead getting a game. That's awesome. And it does have some of the style there, but the gameplay is just, once again, a little boring. It's a lot of running back and forth, collecting things, and constant enemies coming at you. And it just becomes very tedious running back and forth, fighting enemies in the same ways. It seems like it could have been a lot more interesting as an Evil Dead game. I would have loved to have seen a little more silliness out of this game. The silliness is there, but I wanted more. I haven't played the sequel to this one yet, and I've heard that one's better, so I'm really interested in playing that one as an Evil Dead fan. And then moving into what I've given a 2.5, and that's Bionicle, which kind of goes at the end. Like this one more than I expected once again. I feel like I go in with low expectations sometimes, and that helps me a lot. Low or no expectations at all. I feel like that's the best way to get into a game, because then you can come in, be slightly impressed with your experience. Bionicle has really cool level design. From what I remember, there's some cool elements there. It's just really cut short. If I remember right, I beat that game in like 1 or 2 sessions. Like, it was over like that. It didn't feel like it had enough time to explore some of the interesting levels, like the water levels, where you get to go through the water and hop out of it. There was some cool stuff there, but overall, I would say there's just not enough content to make me want to replay it ever again. And I think replayability is a huge factor in my ranking list here. I go by games that have impacted me and games that I would love to return to. Bionicle was kind of just a one and done game. Chronicles of Narnia: The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe is at 91. This one, I kind of have a hard time remembering it, to be honest. It's very forgettable. It just felt like another licensed movie game from what I remember. The movie was okay. I rewatched it for the review. It seemed to kind of capture that. I remember it looking okay. It just felt kind of like another bland movie game where you swap characters. Actually felt like a Lego game, which was interesting, but it just really didn't do anything too memorable for me. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone goes in at 90. Really expensive original Xbox game, by the way. But this one, I like the idea. I like some of the levels. I think I like the PS1 version better. Here, I remember running into a lot of glitches and the platforming being really bad. There was like a library level where you had to hop on shelves that I just kept failing on because the platforming and jumping just felt weak. I think style is there, story is there, of course. It's fun to explore the Harry Potter world in this game. It just could have been better. So I'm interested in checking out Chamber of Secrets for the Xbox, and I think Prisoner of Azkaban and Goblet of Fire got Xbox releases as well. So I'm interested in playing those. I played a little Prisoner of Azkaban, and I remember liking that one. All right, 89, Chase. That is an original Xbox exclusive stunt game, kind of like Stunt Driver. I think Chase has a lot of heart. I think there's a lot to like there. It's just a limited package with not a lot to do. The car physics are pretty bad at times. And also, I wish there was more cinematic flair where Stunt Driver, right, that has full cutscenes to really set you in the mood of the movie you're making. I don't feel like Chase has that. Chase doesn't really have the thematic interest. You know, it's like, oh, here's a movie, do a scene. You know, it's not setting you up for a cinematic film. And I just think that overall kind of kills any interest at some point. It's fun in bursts. Arctic Thunder goes into 88. I know people love this game. I think the arcade version is cool. Just don't love the Xbox version. It just asks you to replay the same levels over and over again to get an obscene amount of currency just to do something different. I don't find that interesting. I love unlockables in games, don't get me wrong, but this game, it just feels egregious. And then the gameplay just is kind of one note. It has fun moments. I don't think it's bad, but just doing that on the same courses over and over again, I just got tired of it quickly. And then next up is Dave Mirra 2 Freestyle BMX. This game I didn't hate, much as all these 2.5 games. I don't hate them, I just saw too many issues to really give it a 3, which a 3 is when I start feeling a little more positive on games. I felt like the levels for this game were just way too big. And I don't think in games like this or the Tony Hawk series that large levels means good. These large levels are bland, and like there's moments in the levels that are really solid, but I ended up just going through a lot of blank area. So even though it was fun to ride the bike around, I just found the whole level design forgettable. In my mind, thinking about it now, I only remember a few levels. Oh, and 86, we have State of Emergency. This one is one that I feel like is quite divisive. For me, I feel like it has a good, solid core gameplay, and it has a fun arcade mode, but there just isn't a lot to do, and it becomes really repetitive. And that's a common theme with like 2.5s is I felt like the gameplay wasn't fun enough to sustain a whole playthrough. And then for State of Emergency, it's a game that has barely any levels to play on for that same gameplay. So it just started being uninteresting at a certain point. I feel like it could have been a lot better. This is not a game that I would recommend to many people. At 85, we have Tao Feng Fists of the Lotus. I remember getting this one when it was new and playing it with some friends, but we never really stuck to it for too long. It's honestly just kind of a boring fighter. I think the character designs are uninteresting except for a few. The plot, I could really care less about. The fighting, you really can get into it. There's some cool things here. There's like limb damage, and I feel like you can pull some fun out of it. It's a 2.5. I think there's some elements that are good, but just the combo system is kind of weak. There's just much better fighting games on the Xbox. I wish this one was better. I wish it got a sequel because I feel like a sequel could have really improved this game. At 84, we have Future Tactics: The Uprising. Future Tactics was one that I was really interested in, but once I played it, it was a game with a lot of interesting ideas. It's like Worms from a third-person point of view. You have a ton of weapons, and you take turns in order, and you shoot enemies. Really neat idea. It's just extremely slow. Killing enemies takes many turns, and watching everybody do their moves and everything like that, it's just so slow. If it was just a bit faster paced, I think this game could be remembered better and I would have liked it better, but it's just a bit painful to play, even with some really awesome music and great graphics. Next is Fusion Frenzy, another controversially low one. I don't love Fusion Frenzy. I just don't think it's a great party game. There's better party games on the Xbox. There's some good stuff. There's solid mini games. I love the sumo mini game where you're in the balls hitting people. I think a lot of the vehicle ones are good, but the ones where you're on foot and you're just attacking people for like points, it's just a Power Stone knockoff and it doesn't really play that well. I'd rather play something like Whacked, which is a little more interesting, or even Halo's a better party game. I would play Halo over this one. It's one of those games where like, I like some of the mini games, and if I put it on, I'll be like, let's play these select mini games, not the full single player mode, because then you gotta play a bunch of mini games that are just bland. I like the style, I like the music, I think it's a cool piece of Xbox history, it's very important, but that was a very early review, and I'm interested if I've grown on it a little bit, so I will probably re-review that one. There's a few of these that I want to go back and re-review, especially my old reviews, so maybe that one will get a second look. At 82, we have Soldier of Fortune 2. This one is just kind of your basic shooter. You just go around levels, shoot some enemies. You know, I enjoy a simple first-person shooter just like anybody else. You know, it's kind of mindless. But from what I remember, the graphics are really muddy, and I'm not much of a graphic person. Like, it can kind of change a small amount of my opinion on a game, but for this one, it really did, because I played the PC version. The PC version, even on better graphics, looked like good Xbox games. This game looked like the lowest possible quality on PC, which I know the Xbox could do better than that. So I don't know why they made that choice, and I think in turn it makes a lot of the game ugly. I do like the multiplayer for this game, and I actually got to play this one live on Insignia with a group, which is really cool. But from what I remember, it just kind of is a little basic. You can do a little bit better with first-person shooters on the console. Oh, here's a big one. Here's a very, very controversial one. Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction at 81. Yeah, this one's low, and I did give it a 2.5. I know, brutal rating. Want to give this one another shot. A lot of people in the comments have been telling me, no, that's a good game. You need to give it another look. And I did review this a few years ago, but I just have a hard time with sandbox games like this. I do like certain sandbox games. I think some of them are really fun. But from what I remember about Hulk Ultimate Destruction was it felt very same the whole time. It just was a repeat of the same objectives over and over. And I'm not the type of person that loves to just destroy a city. I know there's people that love games like Prototype where like, oh, I just want to go around, kill some people, destroy some buildings. I personally like objectives. I like something to do. Usually in games like this one, I go from objective to objective. This one, I just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over, and it just stopped being interesting. Though it looks good, it looks incredible on the Xbox, and I do think there's some interesting things going on. It just felt like it repeated itself too much. And then that's kind of just a me thing. And that's what makes this ranking subjective. This is not the end-all, be-all rankings. And everybody is going to differ. And everybody has different gaming tastes. I personally like structure. I like having something to do. I'm not big on aimlessly playing games. But some people love just going into an open world and destroying crap. And if that's what you enjoy, good for you. It just really isn't for me. And then next up at 80 is Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man game. This one I feel like might be a little controversial. I know some people love this game. It was okay. You know, it's fine. I think the combo system is kind of cool. I think it follows the story decently. It's just kind of forgettable at times. I just remember the movement being really awkward. All of the obligatory stealth missions being really annoying. I like the aerial stuff. I really like the Kraven levels we got. And those are the most interesting levels in the game, in my opinion. It sucks that not everybody got that one. The lines are repeated a lot, even though they're really funny. It just has a lot of issues all around that kind of add up. I do think it's fun for a playthrough. This is probably where I start to be like, I'm more likely to play this one again, try it again. But this one's just kind of okay. Next up is Project Snowblind. This is a really, really old review. All right, so really quickly, I went back to my old review for this one because I honestly forgot a lot about Project Snowblind, and just watching the gameplay and everything, it kind of came back to me. If I remember right, this game just doesn't utilize its tools. It has really cool combat and really cool powers, but it never asks you to really use them. It ends up feeling like a bland first-person shooter rather than the Deus Ex sequel that it was originally supposed to be. The arsenal is cool, and I remember there being an exploit at the end where you could easily just be constantly in stealth and you could just skip past the game. That felt like something that designers overlooked and made a lot of the stealth missions just so easy. Next at 78 is True Crime Streets of LA. This one is the last one, and yeah, I feel like it borders on a 2.5 and a 3. I think there's elements that I do like. I think the open world is insane. The capturing of LA, I think that's just so impressive. Looks good on the Xbox. With this game, I feel like the controls are just a little funky. They just didn't really work with the open world. Didn't love the fighting sections. There are sections where you go like in a fight mode. Didn't love those. Those felt weak. I think there's a lot to admire with this game, but just didn't really work as a whole. MX Superfly goes in at 77. This is the first 3-star game, kind of at the bottom here. It's just a fun dirt bike game. There wasn't a lot to do, but I feel like the multiplayer modes would be really fun with another person. And I don't really have a lot to say about it, but it was fine. Next is Ultra Bust-A-Move at 76. Kind of the same, not a lot to do, but it is at least fun. I'm a huge Bust-A-Move fan. I love the Dreamcast version, Bust-A-Move 4. It's like one of my favorite puzzle games. This one doesn't have the same style. I think it goes for a little more of a blander style over those, even with like kind of newer characters. But, it's Bust-A-Move. You can have some fun with it, especially for one of the few puzzle games on the console. I feel like puzzle games were really kind of left out on the Xbox. 75, Madden 2002. Don't really have a lot to say about Madden. It's football. Football's fun. I enjoy it, but usually it's nothing memorable. So yeah, I think it goes in at 75. 74 is World Racing. Solid racing game. Some good tracks, even though a lot of the tracks are like extremely long, but it does have a good look. I think it's just a solid racer. It doesn't have anything to really make it stand out, but it's fine. Next is Obi-Wan at 73. I kind of rank this one higher than usual because this one gets pretty dogged on. Obi-Wan's fun. I like it. I think there's some cool stuff there. The stick for the lightsaber is neat. I think the level design can be cool. It's a cool exploration of the Star Wars universe. Has some issues, but I'd say it's pretty solid. It's a good one to return to. Haunted Mansion at 72. This one needs a revisit. This is another extremely early review. I remember just picking this one out of my collection because oh, that's interesting, a Haunted Mansion game that's not based off the movie. This one you kind of go from room to room. It's similar to Luigi's Mansion, but instead of doing like a full-on knockoff, it does some different stuff. It does some weird stuff like you being tiny in a big room. It's a cool little game. I think this one deserves a little more respect. Ford Racing 2 goes in at 71. Another just fine racer. I think there's a lot of car games in the 3 because I love racing games. That's my own personal bias. So usually I'm a little more positive on them, even if they're kind of basic. Ford Racing 2 is that, just a basic racer, but it's fun just to drive some cars around. At 70 is NASCAR Heat 2002. Just a NASCAR game. It's fine. I had fun with it, but nothing too crazy going on there. Circus Maximus at 69. This is a racing chariot game. I think it's fun. I think there's some fun elements here. I just wish there was more. I feel like it could be better, but I like the idea of it. You don't really see that a lot where you get to control the front and also someone attacking in the back. I think there's enough cool stuff here to make this one memorable. LA Rush goes in at 68. I remember this one just having a lot of issues with driver AI. I think the story is super silly. That's probably what I remember the most. I think the driving is a good amount of fun. I just think the city is just like packed for absolutely no reason. And, I think there's just a few issues that keep it in that 3-star range, but still solid. And that can go for number 67, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Not bad. It's fun. I do think it has something that makes it stand out a lot, and that's its setting and look, but nothing really makes it stand out when compared to other platformers of the era. It just feels like it could be better, and I've never played the sequel, so maybe I'll feel a little differently after I played those, but this one's solid. At 66, NFL Fever 2002, same thing as Madden. I liked it a little bit better than Madden. I remember just thinking the controls just felt a little more fun. I like the passing better, and it just looks solid, so 66 there. NASCAR Thunder at 65, right above NASCAR Heat. NASCAR Thunder, just another NASCAR game. I just remember liking the feel of NASCAR Thunder a little bit more. I thought it was a more fun NASCAR game. Scalar goes into 64, kind of the same thing as Ty. Fun little platformer, doesn't stand out amongst the crowd of platformers at the time. The Xbox is much better, just kind of basic. And there's nothing wrong with basic, you can have some fun with it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to stand out highly in the library. At 63, we have Marvel Nemesis. This is a fighting game with a few other elements. And Marvel Nemesis is just kind of an odd game all around. I have fun with it, though. I think there is some mission variety. Once again, this has some issues, but I don't know, I had some fun with it. It's one that I would go back to. And it's kind of crazy. I'm realizing now just how many 3 stars there are, which is perfect. I want it to be balanced like that. 2.5 and 3, it's kind of like the middle. 2.5 is fine, but leaning more towards bad. 3 is has issues, but is still good. So that's where I want it, kind of like a baseline. So I'm happy to see a lot of 3s here. Thrillville at 62. It's a good theme park sim. I do think, I wish personally that the coaster building was a lot more interesting. The coaster building is just kind of like, it doesn't care about physics or anything. You just put in pieces, which is good for kids, but for me, it's not what I love to see. I like the mini games. I think it's a good party game. The social sim stuff, it could be better. But, you know, overall, I think there's a lot of charm to Thrillville. I find that interesting. At 61 is Sega GT 2002. It's just a solid racing game. This is more of a simulation over an arcade racer. This is one I want to go back to. This is actually one of my first reviews that got really popular. And I know this one has a ton of fans, especially because it came with the Xbox with Jet Set Radio feature for some. I don't think I loved it fully. I feel like I've played better simulation racers, but it has a good look, has really fantastic music, so it's fine. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, good Star Wars game, follows the movie pretty decently. I think the combat's fine. Yeah, I don't really have many complaints about this one. It's not one that I absolutely love, but I go back to it. Sudeki at 59, original Xbox exclusive action RPG. You know, in the review, I harped on the voice acting a lot in this one, and yeah, I still think so, but it kind of makes it a little endearing. I think the action combat is good. I like the look. I think it stands out as a very interesting title in the generation, and as well as on the Xbox. I think there's a lot of fun stuff here, even if the ending gets a little hard. Yeah, I think this is a fun one. Second Sight at 58, this is a really solid one. A lot of cool ideas with the psychic stuff and levitating, and I love the character designs that Free Radical did at this time. Yeah, this one's really dark too. It's very different on the Xbox, which I can appreciate that. And then at 57, Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex. Yeah, it's a solid platformer. I don't really have any major issues with it. I don't think I love it as much as the other 3 Crash games, but, you know, it's more of the same. I can appreciate that they just kind of were like, hey, let's just make Crash for the next generation and not have to make it a little weird. I know reviewers at the time really wanted something different for the next gen, but you don't have to do that. It keeps the solid gameplay. I think that's fun for it. Still Life at 56. I actually see this game get crapped on a lot. I think Still Life is interesting. It's a slow murder mystery game, a point and click. You go around, you just talk to people. The story gets a little insane, it gets a little silly, but I kind of like a silly story, and I like what it goes for. I think there's some fun stuff going on here, very different on the console. At 55, we have Advent Rising. There's a lot of promise with this game, and I think it's fun overall. I like the look. I think the combat can be a lot of fun. It's backwards compatible, looks great on the Series X. a lot of missed potential. I think it just could have been better, and it just really saddens me that it ends on such a cliffhanger. This kind of goes with like certain media. There's like certain media where it's like the first movie or this is the first in a franchise, and then it never goes anywhere. I think you really can't rely on a game or movie or anything being a hit enough to make a sequel, because then it just ends up feeling like an incomplete product. And that's the way Advent Rising felt at the end for me. It just felt incomplete. Even though what's there is cool, I think there's some fun stuff and the music is solid. So it could have been higher if it just felt a little more complete, but still solid. The Sims at 54, this is the Sims port. I think this is a weird part of my ranking list. I'm always surprised that the Sims just ends up, I feel the same about them, but I do think they got better. The Sims one is just kind of just the Sims on Xbox. It's only going to appeal to some people, like Sims fans. It doesn't do anything really different. I don't mind the light from God shining down and you doing things like that. I put this in and I play it sometimes. I have fun. But at 53, I do think Bustin' Out is better than The Sims. I think it's more tailored towards console players. I like the goal system. I like that it's more objective based, not as freeform. You kind of move on, and it gives you good incentives to keep moving on. And at 52 is the Herb Sims in the City, which I think even does that better than Bustin' Out. Has a better, more interesting world. I don't really care about the Black Eyed Peas, but I think it's cool, kind of interesting that they're in the game. I think the music is really solid. I like all of the weird neighborhoods you visit. There's a lot of interesting core things in this game that make it a solid experience. And the Medal of Honor Rising Sun, really amazing intro. I remember, and this is my first ever review on the channel. First video I ever did. You're in Pearl Harbor, ships are destroying. This is really impressive stuff for the time. I do think it loses steam after that, but it's still a fun first-person shooter. As I say a lot, a first-person shooter for me is kind of mindless, and I enjoy that. So it's solid. The Hobbit goes in at 50, right in the middle. This is my last 3-star rating, actually. The Hobbit is good. God, this is another one that I kind of forget about. I remember I read the book and then I was like, I really want to play this game. And I think some levels are just kind of rough. Some levels are good. I do think overall, the style makes this one. I think the style of it is really cute. I love the 3D models. It doesn't feel like it has to be dark and gritty like the Lord of the Rings movies. And I know the Hobbit movies weren't even out yet, so it's cool just that we got this in a game form. I think it's a fun little action game. It definitely lives on that brink of 3 into 3.5, and I think if I went back to it, I could probably enjoy it a little bit more. All right, I had to take a little break. I needed a drink after all that. We've been here for a while. Thank you for sticking with me through this video. Hopefully it's interesting. I realize that I might be contradicting myself a little bit on some of these, especially for ones that I kind of forget. But hey, you know, it's okay. Opinions change over time, you know, feelings, moods. I always feel that. I feel like no opinion is fully concrete. I've revisited a lot of things that I've loved a lot later on. But let's move on into our 3.5s. And right at the bottom of the 3.5 bracket is Disney's Extreme Skate Adventures. I really enjoyed this game way more than I expected. It's based off the Tony Hawk. It uses the same engine as Tony Hawk 4, so it feels great to play. Just what stops it from being a 4, just maybe not enough worlds. I wish there was more Disney movies to skate through, but I really wish we got a sequel to do that, make it like Kingdom Hearts or something. But no, it's just a really solid, fun skating game, and as we'll see as we move up through the ranking, I really love skating games. All right, so Black is 48. That's a 3.5. It's really good. Looks amazing on the console. I think it's a fun shooter. I think some people might put it higher. I don't think it has enough memorable things to make it one of the best shooters on the Xbox, but it is cool, and I think you're going to have a good time if you play that. Jedi Starfighter at 47, which I need to go back and review Star Wars Starfighter. This one's fun. You know, it's a flight arcade game. Move around, shoot things in the Star Wars universe. Broken Sword, The Sleeping Dragon at 46, another really good story-based game. I think the story really captures a lot, and I think it's cool to play this on console. I know for some, it was really hard to move from point-and-click to this more movement controller-based system, but I think it works here. I think I like it so much because it's so interesting at the time, and it still has a really solid, silly story, which I enjoy. Vex goes in at 45. I feel like my review for this one came off a little more negative than I wanted. It's one of those games that I kind of have issues with, but I think the entertainment factor makes up for it. The entertainment and creativity. Vex is full of creativity. I love that it's like Mario 64, and like all the hearts that you get, you're doing some weird stuff. Like I think about playing Breakout on the console, or the little worlds where you face off against shadow versions of yourself. It somehow manages to do so many interesting things that it's hard not to love what it's going for. So I think Vex goes in pretty high here. I know 45 doesn't seem high, but I've reviewed a lot of games that I've enjoyed on the channel. Pirates: The Legend of Black Cat goes in at 44. I enjoy this game. I think it's a fun one. I was surprised. Whenever I put this on, I was expecting just kind of like a bland, like level-based, just going around killing some pirates deal. But instead, you get like this large world where you explore these islands that just, that rewards exploration in a way that I guess I didn't really expect at this time in gaming, especially so early in the Xbox, because you just hop around, collect skulls, fight different enemies. There's a lot of neat stuff going on in this game, and I feel like a lot of people sleep on pirates. It's a cool one. And then Demon Stone goes in at 43. This one plays a lot like the Lord of the Rings games, so you know you have a good solid foundation there. The world is set up in a really good way. I think the combat remains fun. I think the game looks good. It has a really solid art style. If you're looking for an entertaining beat-em-up game, Demon Stone is a good one. At 42 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. This is my least favorite of the Tony Hawk games I've covered so far. For whatever reason, the open world levels don't work for me the best here. I mean, I'm complaining about a game I gave a 3.5. It's a good game. It's Tony Hawk. It's going to be fun. I think Underground does the open world idea just a bit better than Tony Hawk 4. Tony Hawk's 4 idea of an open world is still kind of like the same level design as the classics, but just without the time limit. And I like the goals better in in Underground and stuff like that. So I just really, really good skating game. I'm just complaining about this game, but for real, it's fun. I enjoy it. There's better. Super Monkey Ball Deluxe at 41, which is the Xbox port of the first two Super Monkey Balls. Super Monkey Ball is just a really fun, fast-paced game. You just move the ball around and you just go into the goal. There's nothing really much to say, and it has a lot of content since it's two games jam-packed in one. Number 40, moving into the top 40, Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible Operation Surma is, it's a fun stealth game. It's going for the Metal Gear Solid deal, maybe just a little more action-y. I like the style, I like the look. I thought some of the level design was really interesting. I think Mission Impossible is a cool one. And then 39 Hitman Contracts, which is the only Hitman game I've covered so far. I need to cover more. Hitman Contracts is one that stands out to me because it has no through line, it has no main story, it just has you doing missions. It's just like, hey, you need to do this thing, Agent 47, and you just go in and do it. And I think that's cool. I think that's why the new Hitman games work so much. It feels like it has a really cool setup for a huge level, and it does it well. And I think Hitman Contracts does that. I think it's a fun entry in this franchise. Lynx 2004 goes in at 38. Really good golf game. Controls are pretty spot on. The graphics are good. I wish I could have played this one online back in the day. Just a really solid golf game. Probably one of the best I've played. Crazy Taxi 3 goes in at 37. I mean, it's a collection of the first two Crazy Taxis and a third one. I mean, you really can't hate it. Like the Las Vegas level, the new one, is a disappointment to me. I don't love that level. There's too much slowdown. I think it's weak on the console. But the first two levels, especially the first one, those are just amazing and made for an incredible game. I even think the second level is better in this version. And in Crazy Taxi 2, the Big Apple, something about the Dreamcast version I didn't love, but I think the dynamic lighting for it made me appreciate it a little more on the Xbox. On 36, we have Transworld Snowboarding. Really fun snowboarding game. I mean, as you can see a little bit higher up, we have Amped. They're really close. Transworld Snowboarding is like Tony Hawk, but snowboarding, manual and everything. It's really inventive. I wish there was just more levels. I wish there was more to do, but I think for what it is, it's just a really fun extreme sports game. Mortal Kombat Deception goes in at 35. I really like the fighting in this one. I like the stages, but I think what really sells this one for me is the mini games. I love chess combat and puzzle combat. I think those added on to the bunch is just really good. I think Conquest mode is a little half-baked. I wish there was more there, but I think Mortal Kombat Deception is just fun. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 at 34. A lot of people have gotten upset with me on how low this one is. I don't consider it low. I think it's a great Tony Hawk game. I do think there's better Tony Hawk games. I think the level design's good. I think it's overall just a really fun extreme sports game. I don't have any issues with it. I have nothing to complain about, but it's a good one. Amped goes in at 33. It's another great extreme sports game. I think I like it better than Transworld Snowboarding because with Amped, it's not really trying to copy Tony Hawk. It's doing its own thing. It's not about completing goals in the same way. You're getting points, and the idea is to do in front of photographers and really combo everything to get a good amount of points in. I think that's what I enjoy most about it. And also, I just think it has more of an identity, has more of a creative identity over Transworld Snowboarding, making it stand out more. Next up is Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30. This is a really cool tactical shooter, where it's a first-person shooter where you still shoot enemies, but you also command your troops. Really inventive for the time, really does something different that I like. I think the story's good, and just all around, just an entertaining game. Next is Agent Under Fire, the first 007 game. I think the controls are a bit odd, but I think level design's there. I think the car levels are interesting. I love Bond. As a huge fan of the Bond movies, I think this one captures something interesting while being an original story, which I appreciate, even though, you know, it takes notes from other Bonds, so it feels like a nice love letter, and it feels like the nice natural progression from GoldenEye, so I think this one's a really good Bond game. At 30, we have Unreal Championship, which is the online shooter for Unreal. Really just a solid shooter, good pickups, fun, mindless, good time. The single player mode is just bot modes, and you just kind of move through that. You know, it doesn't really offer a ton if you're looking for story or just different gameplay. You're getting a shooter with different game modes, but what it does there, it does really well. And then the last is Rally Sport Challenge. It's my last 3.5 before we move into the 4 stars. I'm thinking about it now. I need to go back to this one. Once again, another really early review of mine. I think this could be a 4-star now. I think it could be a little higher for me. From what I remember, this is a blast of a rally game. It looks amazing, it feels good to play, and it's one that I want to revisit. So yeah, maybe be on the lookout for that one. This one might go even higher. It's a really great rally game. Jedi Knight Jedi Academy is the very first 4 at number 28. And I'll be honest with you, for the rest of this, it's almost all 4s. I am very picky when it comes to 4.5s and 5s. Actually, no game I reviewed is a 5-star game in my opinion. Crimson Skies is very close to a 5-star game, but I would not consider it perfect. I do think there are 5-star games on the Xbox. I just haven't covered them yet. Once that happens, that's a perfect game to me. Like, that's a game that I just find incredible, just brilliant. But yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, but let's continue with the 4 stars. Jedi Academy, another early review. The force powers in this one, they're just really cool, and it feels great to play. I love using the lightsaber, and I love throwing people around. That's when it feels the best, and the level design is good, the story is solid. I think about that level where you have the sandworm that's popping out of the sand, and you have to hop onto each platform. That is one of the most memorable gaming levels I've done on the channel. I think about that one a lot because I thought the platforming was cool. It just was a blast of a time. I still think about this one quite a bit. Full Spectrum Warrior goes in at 27. This is a tactical shooter. You don't actually control the troops. You point out where they go and they shoot over cover. You decide what they do. I thought this game was really inventive. I've never really played anything like this on the Xbox yet, and it's just really fun. I don't know, the tactics work Moving from cover to cover is solid. It just ends up being a really fun game. It might lack in things like story, but I think it makes up for it in just being creative and taking its time and being entertaining for that. Topspin goes at 26, probably the best tennis game I've ever played other than maybe Virtua Tennis on the Dreamcast. Career mode in Topspin is fantastic. I love the career mode in Topspin. It feels like a sports RPG in the best way, with a great character creator, and you hop from country to country and you unlock more and more things to do, like tournaments, clothes, sponsors. There's just so much to do here. And then the tennis gameplay is just like perfect. Just hitting it back and forth is fantastic. And then Sphinx, the Cursed Mummy, goes in at 25. Really cool platforming game. The mummy levels are insane because there's no action, and they just are such in-depth puzzles that remain entertaining throughout the entirety of playing through it, and are just creative stuff I've never seen in a game before. And then the stuff you play with Sphinx is really cool, with the giant world that you explore, and the platforming is really neat. This game is gigantic. I can't believe how much content they packed into this game. I was not expecting it. Just a really cool experience and one of the better platformers of its generation. 007 Nightfire goes in at 24. I think this one's a major improvement over Agent Under Fire. I like the vehicle levels a bit more in this one. I think the stealth levels are better done. I think the shooting and controls are improved here. This one feels like a Pierce Brosnan Bond movie, but it's its own deal. I think this one is a good Bond game. And getting up at 23, this one was a surprise for me. Really good story here, mixed with a really solid soundtrack. And once again, I'm looking for unique experiences, and Getting Up is that. I think the whole graffiti angle, the beat 'em up angle, and how much you change from stealth levels to just, it even has early Assassin's Creed type hanging and parkour. It really does a lot with such a simple concept of this graffiti artist rising to the top. I think there's a lot of style and originality in this one. This one needs to be played by more people. 13 at 22, really solid cel-shaded shooter. Looks amazing. Cool story, just a really cool game. It could have been just a basic first-person shooter, but it really does a good job of making sure that it stands out and that it's something a little different. Shooting has the little speech bubbles, and I think about that moment where I was sneaking and above you could see the little sound bubbles of the person walking above, so you know that someone's above you. Just creative uses of the comic book style that you don't really see anywhere else. It's really just something special. Stubbs a Zombie at 21, extremely funny game. One of the funniest games I played. It's silly, has the 50s style. I would say it's just a unique vision. Gameplay is really neat. I love throwing the hand and rolling your head. It really uses the whole zombie playstyle to its fullest. Really fun soundtrack, especially the Xbox version, since a lot of songs were changed for the remaster. Just really interesting title. One of the most unique and funny games you can play on the Xbox. At 20 is Splinter Cell, another really early review of mine. I think Splinter Cell is really solid. I love the stealth. I love the story. I will say, I do think, and I haven't reviewed them yet, the Splinter Cell games do get better from this one. But I think still, for how early it came out in the Xbox's lifespan, and with those lighting effects, just absolutely insane looking game. Really fantastic. Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb at 19, another really good platformer. It captures Indiana Jones just right. It feels great. I love the story. I had a lot of fun with this one, and I remember a lot of the puzzles being good and the combat solid. The collective, which, of course, Getting Up is right there too. I've ended up really liking their work. They've been a game company I've discovered with this channel. It's like, oh, these guys really put in amazing stuff. They knew how to do platforming and how to make interesting narratives around that. Doom 3 at 18, really cool shooter. This is a scary, maybe not so scary anymore, but at the time it was a really scary, solid, fun shooter. I think it has a really interesting world. I like the level design a lot. I think it has a creepy vibe. I do think there's better horror games on the Xbox, but I do think, if you're looking for a horror game that's also super action-packed, Doom 3 is probably the best you can do. At 17, we have Dead or Alive 3. fantastic fighting game. Also looks incredible on the Xbox. Amazing graphics, and it's a launch title. And even at the end of the Xbox's lifespan, still is one of the best looking games you could play on the console. There's really good game modes. Everybody feels different. Just a really fantastic fighter. But at 16, I put Soul Calibur 2 above this one. I do think Soul Calibur 2 is oh god, maybe not better game. I think it's more fun. I like the sword combat. I like the modes. I like Soul Calibur 2's story mode, and I think that kind of pushes it over the edge. They're very close though. They're both just fantastic fighters for the time. At 15, we have Morrowind, a really amazing RPG. It really just throws you in there, and you have to get a notebook, and you have to map things out. So it's not going to work for everybody, but for me, who just loves like that experience of a game like this making you do something tactile, make you think about the maps and everything like that, I think that's neat. And I like that the Xbox version is a vanilla version of the game. You know, it's a very no mods, no nothing. You're experiencing it in kind of its original glory. But I think that's also why this one doesn't go higher, is if you're going to play this, I would say the PC version is going to be the better experience, the more intended experience. I have played it that way since, but you know, it's still just one of the better games on the Xbox. I think it's a cool one to get. Max Payne at 14, really love the story on this one. It's got that comic book style. I do think it gets a little insane, but I think this is one where style works with the substance. It has a lot of style, that noirish feel to it, and the combat's just really cool with the slow motion. It's a fun one. Dreamfall: The Longest Journey. I actually rewatched this review recently because it's another older one. But in this one, I like really made the statement that I love story in gaming, and it's true. I love a really good gaming story. Dreamfall has that. Dreamfall has a really great layered story. It's a point and click, and you just move between these different worlds. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on in this game, and I think it's one of the better stories that you can play on the Xbox, especially if you're into stuff like that. At 12 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X. You can see I love Tony Hawk as we move up. I love this one because it's a combination of the original and the second one, but with updated controls and moves. So it feels really smooth to go through. There's a lot of content, and I love Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. So getting this upgraded version for the Xbox is just fantastic. Probably one of the best examples of that classic Tony Hawk style. Love this game. Project Gotham Racing goes in at 11. Really good racing game. It's only held back by how much better the series got after this. If this was the only one, I really do think it would be higher, but I think whenever you think about like where this series went, it moved down. If I remember right, this one was a lot higher on the ranking, and then I kind of moved it down a little bit because it just gets better. The controls are really good, really simple menus, but you know, for a launch day racing game, this is just addicting and would last you hours upon hours. So entering into my top 10, Fatal Frame 1 goes in at number 10. Really spooky game. Like ghosts coming at you and you gotta slow down and take pictures. It really is fear-inducing, and there's nothing quite like it. I think it's an impressive game. I think the look of it is cool. I just think this game captures mood. I think it has a cool story, but mix that with this freaky mood, and it just really has a feeling all its own. So I think this one deserves to go in the top 10. Bloodwake at number 9. I think this is a fantastic vehicular shooter. It's really difficult. It's really hard at some points, but it's just fast and fun. I just getting into this game, just controlling your boat, cresting over waves, shooting missiles and mini guns at people. It's just one of those fast and addicting experiences. I find it hard to put down once I pick it up. I think the story could have been better. That would be my one weakness, but the reason it gets 4 stars is just because it was a blast. And I think most important in gaming, is it fun, and Bloodwake is tons of fun. Ultimate Spider-Man goes in at number 8. This one's probably higher than most people would put it. This one's definitely like a personal, I just think Ultimate Spider-Man is so much fun. I think the web swinging is perfect. The graphics are incredible. It's got that cel-shaded comic book look that I love. I think the story is really fun. It captures Ultimate Spider-Man really well. Just a fun game all around. Just one that was entertaining and ended far too short. I wish it was a little longer because it's just entertaining the whole time and looks amazing. At number 7 is Quantum Redshift. Fantastic sci-fi racer floating off the ground. Maps are amazing. looks incredible. I cannot heap more praise onto this game. I think more people need to play this one. It's fast, addicting, hard to put down. Just a really quality racing game. At number 6 is Death Row, another game that I consider a hidden gem. It's a sports game, but set in the future where you throw a disc and you have to catch it and throw it in the hoops. It's super violent, has a fighting mode. Yeah, just there's so many elements to make this sports game work, and it's just highly addicting and fun. Probably one of the best sports games I've ever played. Just throwing that disc back and forth, and then maybe you'll have a teammate that's beating the crap out of another player. There's so many layers to it, but also has this simplicity where you understand that the disc just needs to go in the hoop. And that's all you have to do, but it's so hard to get there with some interesting stadium designs and character designs. Death Row is just a special game that I don't think can be captured again, and I really wish it could. And then starting out my top 5. These two are very similar, but Tony Hawk's Underground is my last 4-star. Tony Hawk's Underground is close to a 4.5. I got amazing level design. It has a arguably better story than Tony Hawk's Underground 2. I'll give it that. I think the story for Underground is a little more universal and understandable, where Tony Hawk's Underground 2 is a sillier, more of its time story. Underground and Underground 2 is where Tony Hawk peaked for me. I think just perfect controls, and it just feels so good to play. And that might as well move into my number 4, which is the first 4.5, and all the rest are 4.5s, no 5-star here. Tony Hawk's Underground 2, one of the most fun games you could play. Entertaining from start to finish. All goals are great. All levels are fantastic. Not only that, you get a classic mode on it, which is also fantastic. The story maybe is what holding it back from getting like a perfect score and a few other things, but just based on pure entertainment factor, this is a game I can throw on at any time and fully enjoy. And that could go the same for number 3, Project Gotham Racing 2. One of the best racing games of all time. Just absolutely fantastic controls, weaving through turns, the feelings of the car, all the content you can do. I mean, this game has so much to do in it. It is insane, the amount of things available for you to do. And with Insignia, it's all live again. You get those fun leaderboards. Just really, really solid racing game. And number 2 is Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, one of the greatest gaming stories of all time. It's just one of the most engaging games, interesting games. The plot is weird, but it always has something to say, and I like what it goes for, and I like that it feels like an artistic vision that wasn't held back. You know, Hideo really went everywhere. He was allowed to say what he wanted to say, and I'm all for an artist being able to say exactly what he wants to say without anything holding him back. It also plays really great. The reason it doesn't go at number 1, or maybe it's not a 5-star, is I do think, that there's a better version out there. I do think the PS2 version does have its benefits. So I just have a hard time putting it as like a perfect game or up there, because there's just a better version out there. I just think if a better version's out there, it doesn't deserve to be placed near the top. And I mean, there's going to be games that go above number 1 here eventually once I get there. There's a few I can think of right now, but those will be saved for a special occasion. At number 1 is Crimson Skies, one of my oldest reviews. I honestly don't love that review. I want to redo it for such an amazing game. I say all the time. It sounds a lot like this video does, I'm sure. But Crimson Skies is just an amazing arcade flight game. Some of the best controls, some of the best levels, and then it has like this swashbuckling old film serial style that's so much fun. Just entertaining. It has that fun story, has the great action, has a really solid look, level design, and not only that, just an amazing multiplayer as well. I've gotten to play it on Insignia a few times, and it's just addicting. One of those games that's just an all-around amazing package, and it kind of taught me to love flight games like this. Crimson Skies High Road to Revenge is my favorite game I've covered on the channel so far, and it definitely sits up there really high. Just a really neat game. So now we've hit the end. I actually didn't change any of my rankings. I actually felt more confident in this ranking now that I've talked through it. There's a few games I want to replay and kind of revisit to see where they would go, but for now in my memories, I think all of these are pretty solid. Now, We are all going to disagree and agree on these rankings. It could be just like one number, but I think everybody, if you were given these 100 games, would rank these differently than me. And that's okay. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Xbox games were. Maybe some picks that you absolutely hated from me, or maybe some picks that you loved from me. I don't know. I think everybody's opinion is important. I love hearing from all of you. And now that we're at the end of the video, I want to say I appreciate you watching this. I think I might mumble, meander a little bit, but it was a lot of fun to just talk through these picks, and I hope you really enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to keep up with Retro Xbox content as we keep going and reviewing these Xbox games. Check out Camp Extras if you want to hear me talk about things that aren't Xbox. This is the main channel, but Camp Extras, I kind of pop on there, make a review if I play anything non-Xbox. Of course, as it really helps me out in the algorithm. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support, but I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.